What's up, everybody? This is Fred Richani of the Sports Courier. I have on the line a very special guest. He is a former WCW and ECW superstar and a former WCW World Tag Team Champion. We're catching up with him today, Scotty Riggs. Sir, how are you?
Doing very good, Fred. I hate that. I don't want to cut you off early, but I hate that superstar term. I never got into wrestling to be a superstar. That's something that Vince McMahon and those yahoos over in WWE have created because they don't have good guys, bad guys, all that stuff anymore. They have superstars that go out and do movies, and I got in there to be a wrestler. So if you want to keep referring to me, say WCW, ECW wrestler, Scotty Riggs.
All right.
Everybody else wants to be superstars. I'm an athlete. I grew up playing baseball and football, basketball, went to college and played football, the whole 9 yards like that. So my whole thing was always being an athlete. I never really wanted to be a TV star, TV whatever. That kind of came along with it. You know, every football player, basketball player, all want to be rap stars or some type of celebrity. Me, I just always wanted to be on the field and play my game and go home and, you know, enjoy it that way. So, not to put a kibosh in anything that we got going here already,
No,
but, you know.
No, it's fine. And it's actually fun, interesting you bring that up because I've been watching some of the old stuff on the WWE Network when it actually works and doesn't buffer for 15 minutes. And one thing I kind of forgot about is the difference between the WCW crowds and the WWE crowds. And back in the day, you know, Monday Night Wars and everything, WWE seemed to be more about personalities and things like that, whereas WCW, yeah, you had the crowd that were into the personalities, but they were also really into a lot of the wrestling that you guys were doing. And I remember, you know, watching some of these old pay-per-views, how the undercards, where you guys would be awesome, and the main events, well, a little bit of hit or miss. Do you feel like the WCW crowds back in the day had a bit of more appreciation for the athleticism?
Oh, definitely. WCW was a Southern-based promotion. I mean, it was basically something that was birthed out of the NWA with Jim Crockett and everything that they had. I'm a little bit of a historian myself on it because that's what I grew up on. It was the NWA with Ric Flair and Hardy Race and Blackjack Mulligan, Ricky Steamboat, Paul Jones, the Masked Superstar, the Anderson Brothers, you know, the Horsemen, that stuff like that, out of the Charlotte area. And then the Georgia Championship Wrestling, Mr. Wrestling 2, and Jake the Snake, King Kong Bundy, those guys that were there, they focused on the brutality of really suspending disbelief in wrestling. And every now and then I would be able to get, on the Madison Square Garden Network, would come on the USA channel. Which is what Raw is on today, but it would come on there like once a month. We would get Madison Square Garden Wrestling, the WWF Wrestling, with Backlund and Snooker and those guys. And you could tell there was a difference in how they portrayed their wrestlers. In WWF, it would always be a character that they talked about more, and they really hit on the character, while the NWA, WCW was all about the wrestling. It was about the sport of the wrestling. It's kind of like when I went to Japan the first time. Everything was more focused on the sport of the wrestling because the crowds over there are dead silent because they're watching with intensity the match. And every now and then you get a reaction, but then they go back to silent again. So you really had to focus on being a wrestler. And again, that's what I grew up on. The fans reacted to what we did wrestling. I mean, I remember I was in a flock and we'd be sitting ringside. We would jump Chris Benoit or DDP or somebody, Booker T. We'd do something with those guys, and we would either go back down to where our seats were, or we would, as we were leaving to the crowd, they would be ballistically pissed off at what we did. They would really hate us. And that was what was so cool about, being a bad guy. We had real heat. People hated us, and that was cool. Nowadays, even the WWF crowd, WWE crowd, they don't really hate anybody. You know, they react to what you're doing because they realize what's going on, but because they're all put out as celebrities and everything else put out there. That's why I hate that superstar thing. Because there's no real, nothing for the fans to sink their teeth into nowadays that they used to. That's why the fans, because the crowds are so different. Every time we'd go into the Nassau Coliseum for a Nitro or a Thunder taping or a house show or something, every time we go to the Marriott there, the fans would be out in the lobby going, hey, there's Bagwell and Riggs, and they're Val Venus wannabes, and somebody else would be a somebody else wannabe. That they'd always put you with a character. They'd never go, man, I hate those guys. They beat somebody else. When we would go into places, people would back up from the flock when we would walk in, because we'd go in as a little crew. We'd always travel together. They'd back up and go, hey, Raven, and we just look at them, and they back off because they thought we were really bad guys. They didn't like, and that was cool. So that's the difference. Some fans really buy into what you're doing, or they buy into the character. And the Northerners, for some reason, they bought into characters. That Northeast thing that WWF had, well, WCW had the real legit type wrestling, kind of like NASCAR. People get into the racing. They like the people. They're slowly getting in. Dale Earnhardt Jr., my favorite racer, and some of the other guys, Tony Stewart and Jeff Gordon. They're fun. They're learning the people, but for the longest time, they just love the wrecks. They want to see the racing. They want to see what car is going to win.
And with wrestling fans, though, do you feel like nowadays, especially maybe with more emphasis on the in-ring work, that it's getting to be a combination of the two? Because you see with a guy like Daniel Bryan. Maybe Daniel Bryan's pretty charismatic, but he's not as charismatic as, say, a Rocker Austin. But you see these people, and they absolutely love him. And I feel like they kind of relate to him because they see how hard he works in the ring. A guy like Cesaro is getting over, whereas maybe 5 years.
I love Cesaro.
He's great. Whereas 5 years ago, maybe a body guy, would be pushed to the moon, get over with his character, and that's about it. Do you feel like now with guys like Punk and Bryan and Cesaro that they've kind of put more emphasis on the in-ring work, even though WWE is still trying to make it more character-based?
I don't know if WWE is putting emphasis on it, but I'll say like Bryan and Punk and Cesaro, those guys that you're naming, there's a few others on the way. Cody Rhodes, and it just some of the inner talent that they have are re-educating the fans to what real wrestling is.
Even Dustin Rhodes, actually, too. 44 years old.
Dustin's I've known Dustin for a lot of years, and actually, when I left ECW, I went to work for his dad, Dusty, and Dusty's group in Atlanta that Dusty was trying to get going for a while, and worked for about a year and a half with Dusty and worked Barry Windham, which was a blessing. But I got to work about a 3.5 month program with Dustin. It was right before he made his first little run back to WWE, and I had more fun and learned more with him in that ring. Even after 8-9 years in the business, you still learn. And Dustin, we had so much fun in the ring, and it's just great to see him again recreate himself and get himself back on steady ground. And again, like you're saying, he's doing great stuff, and he's re-educating the fans to what wrestling used to be. It's not all the, I see on my Twitter where people will make comments about the New Age Outlaws against Dustin and Cody, that they're working a 90s style match. It's not a 90s style match. It's a wrestling match. They're working. It's not, it's not an era style. It's what wrestling was. We work a whole people are so uneducated to what wrestling is. They're used to a spot fest where it's continuous running and moving and everything else, and that's not wrestling. That's the flying windows in a circus. Of course, that's what Vince wants. And the one thing I like about Impact Wrestling, TNA, when you see the knockouts get in the ring, Gail Kim and those women there have great wrestling matches where they know how to actually compete. While the WWE Divas, they're all hot, they're all boobs and ass basically, and that's all Vince wants. He wants them to go out there, and it's a match where he shows some hot chicks doing some stuff that makes people go wow, and that's it. He doesn't want that. He does not want them to be great wrestlers, because that way he thinks if the women are great wrestlers, if they detract from the men, can't have them detract from the men. Can't have a girl that's might be viewed as a better wrestler than John Cena, who's my moneymaker. He's not going to have that. And some of the girls I hear from NXT about Cena, when I hear they're like studs, but he's never going to let them do the stuff they know how to do because that's what he wants. That's the difference in wrestling, really grabbing you. And these guys nowadays are re-educating the fans to what wrestling really is. You can watch an Orton match. I love them to a point, but he has the John Cena disease of 5 moves and a comeback. Basically, when he starts his comeback, it's almost everything's going to happen like falling dominoes. It's the same thing. Cena's getting a little better at doing a few things, but it's taken him 10 years to finally do it. Hell, I watched Ric Flair growing up and then finally had matches with Ric Flair. And as Rick got older, his matches became almost the same type thing. It's because he got older. You don't get, you really, Cena's working their way around when he should have been doing more stuff younger. He never did it. It became the 5 moves of doom, which wrestling fans make fun of him for. Not sports entertainment fans, but wrestling fans. Hopefully this is making sense. You got me gabbing like a little girl here.
No. It definitely makes sense. I guess I'll ask you, do you feel like maybe the WWE is, I don't know, maybe too content as far as like with how they teach guys? Like, for example, a guy like John Cena you brought up. I think Cena, is a better worker than people give him credit for his skill level and everything. He obviously has raised his game, but like as you said, he could have been even better. But he stuck to the same old moves. He
can be. Well, it's the old Hulk Hogan method of get beat up, so come back like Superman.
But don't you think that he's also a victim of guys maybe not giving him constructive criticism?
Well, no. Well, it's not just that. It's the thing. That's what Vince. Again, this is Vince's creation. Vince doesn't want all this. He wants characters. He doesn't want wrestling. Vince. I remember when Ted Turner bought WCW. It's a conversation everyone's always heard. Ted Turner called up Vince and said, "Hey, Vince, I'm in the wrestling business." And it says, "That's great, Ted. I'm in the entertainment business." And that was back in the 80s. So Vince has never been a wrestling promoter. He's been an entertainment spectacular. He don't care about the wrestling. That's just what he has. If you look, he's tried to go into football with the XFL. He tried to go into bodybuilding. He's tried everything in the world, movies, music, everything with World Wrestling Entertainment to be an entertainment business. But he can't get away from wrestling because nothing else works for him. So it's just, it's a thing where Cena has just, been taught this is the only way you got to do it to be huge. And that was part of what Hogan did. If you ever watched Hogan in his matches in the 80s and 90s when he was with WWF, he would start something and then he would just get beat up for 10 minutes. And then all of a sudden he'd point his finger, wag his finger, make his Hulk up, come back and beat somebody with a boot and a leg drop. And that was his pattern. Cena's come up with his pattern. And that was what Vince told him. You got to be like Hogan. You got to be Superman. You got to do that. And back in the 80s, when the fans, by then that Iron Secret was good to a point. I was never a Hulk Hogan fan growing up. I know the guy, I respect him for everything he's ever done, but I'm not a fan of his wrestling because it was, to me, even growing up, I was going, that's just not believable. A 6'10", 302-pound, say your prayers, take your vitamins, jacked up monster gets beat up by everybody, and then all of a sudden he comes back and nothing hurts him anymore, and he beats somebody, and you see it every time, and you just don't buy it after a while. I saw Ric Flair and Steamboat and Sting and Terry Funk and those guys have wrestling matches, and every match was different. Every outcome was almost, if it came up to be the figure 4 or a small package or a wrestling move of some sort, that was the difference. Every match was different. You see these guys nowadays on TV and their house shows, everything flows the same exact way. And that's just the way they're teaching the guys.
Yeah, it almost seems like, you know what it is? It almost seems like if it makes money, it doesn't matter whether they're a good wrestler or not, as long as it makes
Bingo.
money. Yeah.
Bingo. That's all Vince wants is, it's a business. I understand that. I respect it. Guys used to make money hand over fist. Paul Orndorff used to tell me the reason his arm is the way it is now was he was wrestling Hogan, was making 5-figure weeks, not months, but weeks. He'd make 15 to 20 grand a week wrestling Hogan on top. Of course, he was wrestling, 6 days a week, twice on Saturday and Sunday. So he was killing himself. He had a piston over his neck. But he couldn't, if you got hurt back then and had to take time off, you'd lose your spot and you lose your money. So he had to learn to work with Hogan with the injury, and that's just why his arm atrophied and became the way it was towards the end of his career, because he never got it fixed. But he was making great money. and that was what it was at the time. You were killing it. So yeah, it's definitely more about the money nowadays. And some guys have learned this is a way to extend your career in a sense by not doing anything except a cycle in your match of how it goes. But the thing is I kind of look myself in the mirror and go, in my career, yeah, that was great. I made a lot of money, but man, I can watch one match of mine from 10 years ago and realize it's the same match 10 years later. Ugh. That sucks. Then sit back and think about it to yourself. If somebody has that much of a, soul that they put into their business, and that's for every man himself to decide, I guess.
That is true. And you look back at WCW, I mean, it's hard to believe it's been over a decade since WCW closed its doors, was bought by WWE. I mean, looking back, can you still believe?
Oh, it has been that long, hasn't it?
Can you still believe how much talent and potential they squandered? I mean, you're talking about how, like, the Divas, the Vince McMahon might be afraid if he has skilled Divas, they might overshadow a guy like John Cena. I know the TNA Knockouts, especially at the beginning with Awesome Kong and Gail Kim, kind of went through that where they kind of overshadowed the men. I mean, you look back at the Cruiserweight division, those awesome mid-card matches. It seems like, as I mentioned earlier, the undercards in WCW, especially in the pay-per-views, would be absolutely kick-ass, and then you get to the main event, and it's like, well, that's the show.
Yeah. Oh, dude, believe me, you could actually, I saw something that Jim Ross, I read something Jim Ross wrote the other day about the top 10 WCW pay-per-views that you should, get on the network. And I sat back and said, man, he had one that was the first NWO sold-out pay-per-view that I was on. And he says, the matches were good, but there's only one match on the whole card that was great, and that was Eddie Guerrero, rest in peace, Eddie, love you, man, against Six. And that was a ladder match that they had. And there was two guys, they stole the show of Hogan versus the Giant. You know what I'm saying? You got Hogan versus the Giant. That's an Andre, remake classic match is all they got to do back in 97. And that's almost like Steamboat and Steamboat Savage. Yeah. Stealing the spotlight on that, WrestleMania 3 because their match was impeccable. And everybody remembers that match. They remember the Andre Hogan for the slam and the win, but they remember the match of Savage and Steamboat. Everybody remembers the match of Eddie and Six. And you could go on that line, whether you name Benoit or Malenko, anything Eddie ever did was phenomenal. Rey Mysterio, every one of those guys, even Disco Inferno and Conan would have great matches that people remember, compared to some of the main events they had, because the main events were just, it was all the older guys that were basically, just should have been, hired to build younger talent. Instead, they, I hate to put it this way, but a lot of the older guys that came in from WWF did nothing but hold back a lot of the younger talent from being great. And they even saw, and they even tried to make them down lower on the card, on pay-per-views, to make them look not as credible as they should have been. But their ring work shined. And, you can't douse that. You can't make them look bad in the ring unless you're working on yourself and you want to make them look bad.
Yeah.
So that's the reason younger talent got over so well, and then most of them left and became big stars, huge stars in WWE. The older talent in WWE, or that came to WCW, who were making, the $1 million contracts, all just kind of faded away. It's just the way it happened. They all faded away for a couple of years and went to work for TNA. Ravaged that place for a little while and just had fun and made their paychecks and got out of there. But, most of them, after that big run that WCW had for a couple of years, they were pretty much done in the business. Yeah. Well, the other guys were that Vince grabbed up were growing leaps and bounds because they finally had a chance to grow.
And a lot of people are wondering. I mean, you spent a lot of time in WCW. You spent some time in ECW. What's been life after wrestling been like for you? That's a good question. Basically, worked a lot of independence for a while. Just enjoying wrestling.
I had a couple of talks with Jim Ross about coming to WWE, and it was just, everything was so hectic then. They didn't want to pay a whole lot of money, you know, to guys. You know, I was used to a nice, you know, Ted Turner contract and everything else. And they were pretty much, you know, bringing in guys that they could pay less money, see what they could do and everything else. And I just didn't want to deal with the politics of everything. And there was such a cluster there when they were doing the invasion thing and stuff. So I basically enjoyed working overseas for a while. And then to put a nail in the coffin, I guess I fractured my ulnar bone and my left elbow. And it's taken 3 surgeries. It's not right. I had 13 screws and 2 steel plates in my left arm to fix the bone. And then I had 1 surgery, a 3rd surgery to transpose the nerve to try to keep the feeling in my last 2 fingers. And the button of my thumb of my hand, that whole left hand, you know, that whole corner of that hand is pretty much numb all the time now. And it's just an accident at a show. Tripped on a cable as I was leaving the ring and put my elbow into the ground and fractured the bone. You know, just one of those things that just happens to happen. Got shot by a sniper. So, and then I had my last match in 2009 pretty much for Francine at the old ECW arena with a Legends of the Arena show with Jamie Dundee and Rhino went through Ray Dance. So, you know, my life now pretty much consists of doing DDP yoga, playing a little golf when I can, and I live on an island, Hilton Head Island. So pretty much just enjoy the beach and the pool and wait for that warmer weather to hit so I can play a little more golf and just enjoy life a little bit. Just kind of being retired right now. So that's pretty much what it entails for me nowadays. I don't have the hectic lifestyle. I miss the fans, I miss the in-ring action, but man, I don't miss the politics.
Well, it's great to hear that you're doing well. I mean, I remember you released a statement, I think, on your Facebook page of the list of injuries you had. I mean, it's insane. I mean, how's your body holding up right now?
Well, I mean, long story short, my neck and back, my spine, from what my doctor told me, I just recently got a whole series of MRI tests done, where I got about 6, 3 in my neck, 1 in the middle of my back, and 2 in my or 3 in my lower back, I think it is. I have 6 herniated discs. I got a couple of areas where I got some bone spurs. I have, how do you say this word? I can see my head. Spondylosis, I think it is. It's pretty much arthritis of the entire spine. I have a fracture in my hip that never healed right. And pretty much from what my doctor said, I have the neck and back of an 80-year-old. And I'm turning 48 this coming Saturday. So I'm just a little over halfway to that age, but my body's almost twice of what it should be. At least my spine is. Plus, you got to remember, I played football and basketball and baseball growing up, and I played college football. I've got 6, 7 documented concussions. So I've already done Chris Nowinski. I got in touch with him through Vera Van Dam, and I'm donating my brain when I pass away. Hopefully, a long time from now. Who knows? Yeah. But I'm donating my brain to their research there. As for the concussion damage, I know I have. I have my nose broken 3 times, twice by Van Dam, once by Booker T. And, it's just endless list of bumps and bruises and things, a lot of scars and everything else. But to me, I sit back and get a lot of my badges of honor in my mind because, my nose, like I said, been broken a couple of times by Van Dam. They were all great spots. One was a kick that started in 94, and one was the Van Terminator into the chair, and everyone's kind of memory. I got a scar on my arm, about a 4-inch scar where I went through a table with Public Enemy. I mean, God bless both their souls. I love you guys, Rocco and Johnny. So, I mean, every little injury I have has a memory to it. So it's like being an NFL player with your bad knees and everything else. Your body's beaten up, but, my mind is still, for right now, intact. And, at least my long-term memories are great. My short-term memories suck nowadays. I got to write everything down on Post-its if I want to remember anything. I'll walk in the room sometimes and forget why I'm walking in the rooms. There's a lot of things. I forgot about our thing until I kept looking at the post-it, and the guy sent me a message on my Facebook today wanting to do a interview on Skype, and I said, dude, I don't do Skype. I don't, I'm not that technologically gifted. I know it can't be that hard to set it up, but there's some equipment you got to buy. There's this, that, and the other, and he's wanting me to do all these app things, everything else. I'm like going, dude, if you can call me up, we can do it on the phone. We'll work it like that. Otherwise, I'm not going to invest in a whole bunch of stuff to do one interview.
I got
you. But, I actually thanked him and said, yeah, your message you sent me today actually reminded me of this, thing we had to do. Even though I got messages from you earlier, hey, we're still on for 6:30. I'm like, oh, shit, yeah. So, it's these things that, I gave my life, my body, my everything to this. I started, being an athlete in high school and in college. And I went straight from college, got a business degree in management, bachelor's degree, and went straight into wrestling. I've never used my degree when it came to actually going to work in the business. I've never had any other job other than wrestling and doing some bouncing and helping run a club, which is pretty much what I do now. I help run a piano bar in Hilton Head Island. So I guess I have used my management degree a little bit now. Don't even realize it. But it's just your body takes a beating. Every one of them does. There's very few people who escape anything without injury. So,
do you feel like
I've had a few people? No, I've had a few people that say I've met in my life. I remember when I fractured my arm, I had this huge cast, and this idiot walks up and slaps my cast.
Oh my God!
I goozled him. I got him by the throat with my right arm and put him up against the wall and was like, "What the hell are you doing?" He was like, "Man, I'm sorry." I mean, and all of a sudden, then the pain kicked in. I let him go, and I dropped him. And he's like, "Damn, I'm sorry. I didn't know that. Does that hurt?" I'm like, "Yeah, dude. There's a fractured arm with bones and staples, and everything in there." And he goes, "Dude, I didn't know. I thought with a cast on it, it would hurt." I'm like, "You ever been hurt?" He goes, "No." I said, he's never had a flat lip, never had a broken bone, a sprained ankle, nothing. I'm like, dude. And he was 27 years old and never had a scratch in his body.
Wow.
And I'm going, how do you live in life? Are you living life? Or are you in a cocoon? Are you the boy in the bubble? You John Travolta, the boy in the bubble?
Yeah.
I mean, that's what was running through my mind. I mean, he didn't know that something would hurt. To me, that just blew my mind. But, it's one of those things that, you give your life to. You sacrifice it to, and you hope to, at least be able to reap the rewards sometime later in life.
That's true.
A lot of memories are your rewards. So good stuff.
Yeah, and I was just going to ask you earlier before. Do you feel like you're kind of I hate to say this, but you're almost kind of like a survivor in a way, considering unfortunately, there's a lot of your colleagues that are no longer with us?
Yeah, actually, I had somebody ask me one of the stupidest questions ever. Out of the guys that have died, who you miss the most? And I was like, wow, what an asinine question. But I said, dude, I miss all of them. It says 97. I've had 40, 47, 40, 45 or 46, something like that, 40 plus people that I know personally, I've interacted with, hung out with, partied with, worked out with, traveled with, die.
Wow.
I don't think people that are my age, turning 48, know more than 5 people in their life. Some of those are their parents and their uncles or somebody that's older than them, not their contemporaries that are the same age. That's just not me personally. That's a lot of guys my age have been to wrestling and everything else. They all know the same people. We all been around each other pretty much, our entire lives, or at least half our lives. And when somebody passes away, and Viscera just passed away. I never knew the man, but we were part of the same fraternity in wrestling, and I knew it from other people. So when he passed away, that definitely was. I felt a loss. It wasn't just a fandom thing. It was more of like it was another part of my extended family in wrestling has passed away. So. It definitely, I don't see myself as a survivor. It's kind of a weird way of saying it. I just, you know, see myself as still enjoying living the life that I was blessed to live. You know, I lived a blessed life, man. You know, I'm not surviving anything. I'm still living the blessed part of it.
That's definitely great to hear. Now, do you have a little bit of time for some fan questions?
Sure.
All right, this is on a lighter note.
You had me gabbing like a little girl about a whole bunch of stuff. So, one story Chris Jericho might, if you ever thought of him, if you remind him of it, he'll probably quote it just like I'm saying. He always called my stories Rick stories. Like, what do you mean, Chris? He goes, I ask you what time it is, you tell me how to build a watch, and you never tell me what time it is.
Well, luckily
I'm like, wow, that's a Rick story. You ask me one question, I will go on until you cut me off. Gabbing like a little girl. So I had that, you know, Raven and Jericho used to always touch my balls about that. So,
well, you've answered my question, so I'm happy.
There you go.
Cool. All right, we have one question right here. What was up with the eye patch? Did you really have an eye injury?
Yes. It was a real eye injury. If you ever watch the tape, the DVD, or you ever watch the network, I'm going to say that much now. There's no more YouTube of it or whatever. I don't know. I'm just saying. If you ever watch WWE Network and get up Riggs versus Raven, the match, you'll see that I was supposed to hit the flat side of it. There's a flat side and a hard side of the chair. Flat side is where you put your ass, basically, and the other side is where the edges and stuff are. If you ever see the chair falls edge up. And when I hit the chair, basically it did hit my eye on it. And I was legally blind for about a little over a year, because I had to wear the eye patch and also put an opaque contact lens in my eye because the TV lights were so bright they were giving me headaches because of the eye. And so I had to wear the eye patch in to keep the bright light out. And I wore the eye patch. So I was legally blind in that eye when I wrestled.
Wow. I don't know if you would have been medically cleared today for that.
Probably nowadays with the wellness program that WWE has, I'd say probably no. But, I mean, Carl Ouellette, I think is how you say it. He was one of the amazing Canadians or French Canadians, or they were way back then. But he actually had an eye injury and wore the eye thing for a long time. And it was a legit injury he had, and something he, you know, worked with and helped with his vision, and when his one eye was bad. So he worked with it for those guys for a long time. But again, that was way before the wellness policy kicked in ever. So I got to kind of take it, you know, the good with the bad with it. So, but hey, it was fun though. Chicks dug it.
Yeah. All right, let's see right here. Oh, this is about your ECW run. You had a nice little run in ECW, and I recall back in the day you turned babyface and then abruptly left. Why did you leave ECW besides Paul Heyman not paying you?
I never turned babyface. I left there as a heel. Basically, the reason I left was the place shut down. I had actually wrestled Van Dam in Hammerstein Ballroom in New York City, and we were the main event. We were the 2-night thing. They were there on a Friday night. They did tag team tournament. Saturday night they did the single matches, everything else, and had me and Van Dam against each other in the main. And I cracked 2 ribs and bruised my rib area in the first 2 minutes of the match with Rob. And we ended up somehow, thanks to Rob, you know, God bless him for it and give him major credit for it, but, you know, for keeping up the match together. But I couldn't breathe, everything else. I, you know, pain. If you ever watch the match, you see me crumple after everything we do because there's so much pain. But we got through the match, and I was pretty much out for about 6 to 8 weeks after that with the ribs before they healed. I mean, I would make little things here, little things there to get things done. And actually, when I came back, I think, I trying to remember if it went this way, I actually turned Steve Corino babyface in the ECW arena in Philly. And in one match, me and him against each other, he had kind of, you know, was fun, you know, didn't know if he was going to turn or what. And we had a match. I turned in babyface in it. Then he worked his way to become the ECW champ. But then after a little while, part of the deal was, we weren't getting paid. And, they were wanting me to work for part of my money, come in, and things came in. I'd get the rest of it later and stuff. And I just kept going, no. So a lot of the same reasons Van Dam stopped showing and some of the other guys just stopped showing because, we had good, good paid contract money. We were working our work for free. We'd already done that early in our careers, towards the end and stuff like that. When we know we're making good money, it was bad business decisions done on our part that we're not going to get paid. So that was kind of what happened. It was a cluster of things, a few injuries along the way, and got healthy from the injuries, and then the place just basically shut down. I mean, it wasn't a matter of not wanting to work, not wanting to be there, not wanting to wrestle. It's just when, they fly you in, you're not getting paid. It just kind of, it puts it in. Paul's not showing up for work, and he's sending somebody else to do the dirty work of telling us we're not getting paid this week and everything else. You just got to be a businessman instead of just a sportsman the whole time when it comes to that point. I give Paul all the credit in the world. He came up with a clap and told me a whole 9 yards about it and sat me down and got it, he ended up getting over huge and Paul always had a grin on his face of like, I told you it would. I told you it would. Because your ring work gets you over with everything else, but this could do something that people can bite into, and so, and Paul was the first, guy I ever worked for that sat me down when I first came there and said, this is what we're going to do with you for the first 6 months we're going to have you. And pretty much basically fell to a T. Felt like dominoes. Ding, ding, ding. Everything that he told me would happen almost happened. There was a few, things, or a few things that changed here and there, but for the most part, 75% of exactly what he had planned for me happened. You rarely ever see somebody have that long-term agenda for somebody that actually happens. But he's an evil genius when it comes to that. Evil genius. Shitty businessman, great with the wrestling.
The latter is actually both are definitely true, but especially the latter. I mean, the work he did, even with like SmackDown too, he did in like the early 2000s and OVW working with guys. It's amazing that he's on the roster now. I mean, as an on-air talent, and they're not using him in a creative capacity. And Dutch Mantell is on the roster as an on-air talent, and neither is he being used in a creative capacity. Can you believe that?
Well, the only not being behind the scenes, I can agree with you 100%, but don't know why they wouldn't use him. Other than I know from past talking with Paul, especially when they were trying to do ECW stuff, under Vince's vision. There's so many times that Paul would have to rewrite shows and rewrite everything on the day of the Tuesday of the tapings. He's doing some rewrites. He's doing the entire show almost all because Vince hated it and wanted this change and wanted that change. They had so many confrontations. I almost have a feeling he likes just being a talent and not having to be in the booking meetings and the creative meetings. Because nowadays, from what I know, from what some of the guys tell me, their writers are writers from Days of Our Lives. They're soap opera writers. They're TV writers. They're not wrestling writers. They don't know how to write a wrestling angle. They don't know how to write a TV show. And when I know Triple H is helping with some of the wrestling creative side of it, but their main writers are from television, not from wrestling. They don't have wrestling experience. So a lot of their stuff is just. I've seen stuff where Orton, and people will send me little things where Orton will walk up to them like I saw something where he did with Sheamus. He forgot his line, and he walks up to Sheamus and says, "What's my line?" You're in the middle of a promo.
That's happened a couple times actually with him, sadly.
I've only seen one or two that somebody has sent me. Watch this of Orton promo. What do you think? I can't think anything of it because it's like you got to be kidding me. But I'm sure he's not the only one who forgets their promo. But that's the thing. They're making these guys who are wrestlers supposed to be regurgitating these lines I write for them, and it's not even part of who they really are. And that's the sad part about it. They don't know who Randy Orton is to write for him. They're just giving them scripts of what we want you to say and how we want you to act. And they're not letting them be Randy Orton. The main reason Ric Flair and Dusty Rhodes should be teaching these guys, they should have Flair down at their performance center, whatever you want to call it, teaching these guys, like Dusty is, how to do promos, how to be themselves. I know Dusty worked almost daily with Bray Wyatt. And Bray Wyatt writes all his own stuff. He actually got him to agree to it. From what I know, he writes all his own interviews, word for word. He gets it approved, but he has to write a couple different ways to make sure it's right, because he doesn't want those writers trying to, make him be something that he doesn't. He's built his character through Dusty. That the Wyatt family, the whole 9 yards. And he writes the entire thing for himself. And that's why he's getting over so well with his promos, because he knows who he is. Ric Flair and Dusty Rhodes can do the best improv interviews in wrestling, bar none. Bar none. I've seen the Hogan once, and it screwed up an interview so bad, it made you go, "Who's this? He's an icon?" Because he couldn't remember a line. He kept flubbing it. He couldn't repair it. So he's, that's why I never give Hogan. The only thing he got great in his promo is when he says brother, because then it's over. But Ric Flair and those guys could just off the hip. I know Dusty got in trouble when he did that deal with Stephanie or something when they were doing the Rhodes family thing against the Shield and everything, and Stephanie was trying to say something. He put his hand in her face because he was on a roll that was unscripted. And he kept going, and Hunter knew what was going on, but Stephanie's she's an on-air talent. She just goes by the script. So she has it written on her hand sometimes. She just goes by the script. She's not a off-the-cuff improv, she can't improvise. Dusty knows guys can. So it's just another, what do you want to call it? Just another comparison of wrestling versus entertainment.
I
don't even know what the question. I even forgot what the question was. But I got off on some hell of a tangent there, didn't I?
Well, no, it was interesting. I'm pretty sure you answered my question. I kind of forgot it too, but it was very interesting and very true, and very true what you said. This actually, we had a couple of people that are asking this. Are you still in contact at all with your former tag team partner, Buff Bagwell?
Occasionally, we chit chat. We'll send a text to each other. I'm actually going to see him March 8th next weekend in New York. We got a Lucky 13 Promotions has a big event NYC. They got Dennis Rodman going to be there, me, Marcus, Jimmy Hart, Scream Queen Daphne, Shark Boy, a couple other AJ Styles. I think Ernest Cat Miller. You're going to have some wrestling and a couple other celebrities and stuff that are going to be there for this big, conventions all on a Saturday afternoon for this big thing. So I'm going to see him then. I just saw him at WrestleCade in North Carolina back in November, and I saw him again in August at the NWA Legends reunion. So we bump into each other, and we'll send a text here and there. It's the same thing with Stinger and Lex. We all live different lives now. We're all, Stinger's in Texas. I'm in South Carolina and man on the island, and Lex and Marcus, I think, are still around the Atlanta area. We all used to live in Atlanta and travel together, party together, and everything else together. And now we're just, we're all older. Stinger's kids have grown up. Steve and Garrett are now in, college football playing kids and everything else. And so it's just funny, we all got older, even though we don't act like it. But we do keep in contact.
That's cool. All right, I'll get you on this, sir, because I have a few people that are also asking this. I think it's a good question to end on. What's the best piece of advice you give young or aspiring wrestlers?
Get an education. Get your college degree. It's something you can fall back on, because most young aspiring wrestlers, it can take, if you want to really be good at what you do and have longevity at it and be somebody in what you're doing, it can take you 10 years to get that experience, to be seen or noticed. And a lot of what like WWE is looking for right now, they're going to colleges. I know Jerry Briscoe goes and scouts the amateur wrestling talents across the country. He goes to meets of the colleges and stuff, and he sees guys who are big, huge, and he knows there's not a whole lot of, depending on what their degree is in, maybe they're looking to have a degree in that. They're just doing the amateur wrestling now to pay for their school or whatever. But, he goes and scouts talent. JR scouts talent at colleges, football players and basketball players. So they're always looking across the colleges to find somebody to send to NXT, to send to their training ground, to get your training and everything else. So if you start wrestling on your own, it's going to be hard to get noticed nowadays unless you got somebody who can name drop you all the time, or drop a tape, or drop a DVD or something nowadays for you. But there are very, very, very few people on independents they're looking for right now, because they don't want to have to retrain everybody to the WWE style. TNA, I know, is trying to look for younger, independent talent. I mean, when I was wrestling, when I first got into it, I had WCW. I went to USWA in '95. Arn Anderson told me I was 94. It was like I said, I wrestled Steve Austin. It was a match, and Arn Anderson came up to me after the match and said, "Kid, you need to get out of here." I said, "Excuse me?" He goes, "Eric Bischoff is basically getting ready to get power, take control of this place, and you have a good look about you. You got a great attitude, great wrestling ability." He goes, you got a good package to you. If you don't get out of here now, you're going to get caught under a ceiling, and you won't be able to break it. You'll be in that glass ceiling, man. He goes, you have too much ability to get stuck there. And I was actually traveling with Jake Snake Roberts at the time, and Jake introduced me to Jerry Lawler to show Warner Roberts. And Jerry watched my match, came up to me afterwards and said, "Hey," and this was at a Thanksgiving show, so it was November. He goes, "I'm in Memphis running USWA." I said, "Yeah, I know about it. I mean, watched a little bit here and there." He goes, "Well, I want offer you a chance to come in. You won't make a whole lot of money. You make $40 a day, but you'll work 6 days a week." This was in the '90s, so gas was cheap. You look at it this way: $10 for gas, $10 for meal, and $20 for a hotel room. If you split the room with somebody, I was traveling with Jimmy Dundee. Tommy Rich introduced me to him to travel with at the time. Then I traveled with Brian Christopher, Jerry's son, for a while. But I was there for 8 months, and probably gained some of the best experience and exposure, which is what Jerry promised me in that 8 months, because I was wrestling 6 nights a week. If you can't wrestle 6 nights a week nowadays, you're not going to make it. You don't train every day. You're working out somehow in the ring. Like I said, I was traveling. I put 50,000+ miles on my Chevy Blazer I had that time in 8 months, and made less than $6,000.
Wow.
But it prepared me for when I had the chance to become Bagwell's partner in WCW, when they called me and had me come in at the end of August under a 90-day trial basis. Kevin Sullivan hired me up. Jimmy Hart created the American Male's gimmick, the music, and everything else. And then me and Bagwell, we wrestled our first match against Bobby Eaton and Steve Regal. William Regal at the time. Which one is he now?
He's William Regal.
I can't remember.
William Regal, but that's William Regal. But that's a hell of a team.
Okay, let's say anybody knows Steve Regal or William Regal. I can't remember which one he is now, but it was against Bobby Eaton and Regal. And they made Bobby and Regal made me look like $1 million. I mean, look like a 10-year vet, kind of like Austin did in that match. Austin was great to work with. Only got to work with him a couple of times, once in a tag match with him and Pillman, and once in the singles. But did so much for my career, it was stupid. But the same thing with Eaton and Regal. They made me look great. Everything came crisp. And the next day, I remember we had another match with the Barrow Brothers that was really solid, really good. And then the next day, we came into the locker room, and Jimmy Hart got this and said, guys, you don't have anything today. You're not wrestling. But we got, for the next 2 days, we're shooting some videos and stuff for you two, and the American Males, the music. You're going to be riding some horses, and all the old USWA stuff, from riding horses and motorcycles and all those other stuff that they did. And then we didn't wrestle for the rest of the time we were there. except that we wrestled a couple matches, but nothing as big as next thing you know, we were World Tag Team champs. But if I hadn't done the steps I did beforehand of wrestling the independents, came to WCW, worked with them, just a nightly deal for about a year. Had my match with Austin, things started changing a little bit. Arn Anderson gave me some great advice. Jerry Lawler, had to meet him to get the snake. And then things just happened for me. So if you don't have that type of stuff happening for you nowadays, and you don't have somebody pitching for you, creating for you. I mean, when I was in USW, I had guys like Billy Jack Haynes, Tommy Rich, Doug Gilbert, Lawler himself, Bill Dundee, the Raw, scouting my matches, watching my matches, telling me the good I was doing, the bad I was doing to get better. If you don't have guys watching your matches that have that resume that they grew up in, giving you advice, the only advice I can tell guys nowadays is if you don't have that going for you right now, be sure to get an education. Because if wrestling don't work, no matter how big of a passion you have for it, you got to be able to make a living somehow. You know, even after your career. I know a lot of guys that are finished wrestling or just do wrestling on the side now that have always either been with WWE or somebody else, WCW, ECW, and most of them have now gotten into regular jobs. Rick Steiner, who's been all over the world wrestling, is, he's in his late or mid-50s, I guess is what it is, but early 50s. He is a real estate agent, been that for about the past 7-8 years in Atlanta, and one of the top real estate agents there. He still wrestles here and there, but he's on the board of education there. And this is dog-faced gremlin Rick Steiner, woof, 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 is doing that. So, and that's what he basically had a business major, and he turned into real estate by taking the classes, everything else, because he knew his wrestling career, even though he made great money, was coming to an end, and he still needed to work to provide for his family. So you got to be able to do that. And if you don't get an education, you ain't going to do it.
Wise words from a wise man. Scotty Riggs, it was an absolute pleasure talking.
I'm not a wise man. I learned the hard way. And it's not that School of Hard Knocks crap that everybody puts on their Facebook page or Twitter or whatever. That's bullshit. They put that on there, they're full of, they're blowing smoke up your butt. But the way I look at it is, I just learned, I've had a blessed life. Been very blessed in my wrestling career and happened to come in at the right time. I mean, I almost ended up in WWE when I was in Memphis. As weird as this might sound, I was actually, Lawler brought me up there for him to look at me a little bit. I had one match with Gorgeous George, and it was more of a tryout match for him, but actually he screwed up everything he was doing in the match. I was pretty much crisp with my stuff, so I got a lot of props for it. But they actually used me as the flag bearer. It was right before the King of the Ring. It was Lex against Yokozuna. And I was a flag bearer for the match because they needed somebody to take a bump from Mr. Fuji. And when they offered it to me, I think it was Tony Gurria or Blackjack Lanza was the agent. They came up to me and said, "Hey, we need somebody to take a bump for Fuji. You're not wrestling tonight. You're going to have to do this." So, okay, so I had to go out there with the flag. And they were, basically using wrestling. They pick a fan out of the audience to do Lex's things. Lex didn't know me from another nickel he had in his pocket. I was nobody to him. Didn't even know how to wrestle. But I came out there, did the thing with the flag, took the bump for Fuji. To me, that was cool because I watched Fuji wrestle. I had a lot of respect for him and everything else. So to take the bump for him, I was like, this is sweet. I love it. Took the bump from everything else. Lawler put me over to Vince a little bit at the time, and I was wrestling, doing well. And Mike Rotunda, who was working as an agent, came up to me afterwards. He's not going to wrestle the rest of the time we're here because they're thinking about putting you with Lex as his protege because you're both from Atlanta, and you can be Lex's protege and be under his wing and start, maybe we can work some deals with you here because you're in Memphis and you're with Lawler and everything else. So about the same time, I started getting a call from Kevin Sullivan and Terry Taylor, and those guys were thinking about bringing me in as Bagwell's tag team partner. So I had a point in time where at my career I was over the crossroads of which direction do I go. I was still young. I was learning this stuff in the USWA with Lawler. But when everything happened so very quickly, within about 4 or 5 weeks, is when I got the boom, we want to bring you in. This is your starting date. Everything on Bagwell. This is the money we're going to pay you. this, and this. Here's a chance to grab that. Or do I keep waiting to see what's going to happen with the WWE thing? So I went with WCW. Little did I know, the very first Nitro we ever had in Minneapolis, All of America, who shows up at Nitro, I didn't even know it. Nobody knew it because they kept Lex hidden, but was Lex. So there were the good karma of wrestling where I was blessed that if I would have went to WWE and tried to do the Lex protege thing, Lex was gone. I would have been stuck there with, a horseshoe at my butt. Instead of a chance, an opportunity. I would have got stuck. Still making $40 a night. Probably still wrestling in Memphis until something happened. But I just took the opportunity that was presented to happen quickly and turned into a very, a solid career with WCW and ECW. So I can't complain. And then again, I was very blessed, and things happen for a reason. And when I showed up there, I was kind of like, did I make the right decision? Because Lawler busted my balls. And I got heat with him still, and he's got heat with me for doing. He tried to bust my balls and say that you're going to WCW and this and the other. You're screwing up. You should be in WWE or WF at the time, and everything else. And bust my balls from the whole locker room. The night I was leaving, when I told him I was leaving. So he still got heat with me on that. We've talked once or twice on the way. We bumped into each other, but it's been very I think he still feels it himself because I think he knew he didn't think I was going to do anything, and ended up, having a decent run. It's good stuff though.
You definitely had a nice run, man, and it definitely was a pleasure to talk to you for this hour, man. Nice taking a trip down memory lane as well as talking about the current state of professional wrestling. Fans, you can follow Scotty Riggs on Twitter at @RealScottyRiggs. Scotty, thank you so much for your time, man. Let's do this again soon.
Very good, friend. I appreciate it, man, and it was a blast.
Awesome. Thank you.